Hello, folks. Thanks for tuning in again to the Britt Kanawha West Hancock Athletics Podcast. This is Dan Kroll on July 10th, 2024. This is episode 111. And tonight I have the Rietema brothers on with me. I have Tony down on the bottom of the screen is a 1998 West Hancock graduate. And then Kurt to my left on the screen anyway is a 2000 West Hancock grad. They both pulled out their old shirts, maybe or maybe not some insects or bugs or critters got into, and they're still fitting in them. So that's impressive. So I wore my Central shirt since we're all Central grads as well. So we're going to talk some West Hancock athletics, some Central athletic stuff, Price is Right, mission trips, some cool stuff that these guys have done. So welcome, fellas, and I'm excited to get to this episode. It'll be a fun one. So like always, this podcast would not be possible without my sponsors. 23 of them tonight, if I counted correctly. I have Nick Schmidt, Ewing Funeral Home and Monument Company, White Barn Picket Fence. She has a new location in Britt they're working on right now. Carlson Drainage, Levi Dawn Trucking. Levi is a lifetime sponsor, so thanks to Levi. Trolson Auto Parts, Window World of Mason City, another lifetime sponsor. The Britt Car Truck Bike and Tractor Night Cruise and Mojo Productions. Make sure to get up to Britt this Wednesday, a week from today, for their first car show. Doug and Kathy Zool, also lifetime members. Daniel's Auto Collision, Triple B's Food Trucks, Swenson's Hardware, Jeff and Becky Nielsen, Kelly Real Estate, another lifetime member would be Pritchard's Auto in Britt and surrounding area. Carty Care Transportation LLC in Kanawha, the Kanawha Community Home, Deemer Realty, Stevens Realty, and Lehman Family Dental in Clear Lake, along with Tracy Schmidt today. So thank you to all those sponsors for giving to the Legacy Fund. If you don't know, the Bob and Linda Sanger Legacy Fund honors the late great Coach Bob Sanger and his wife Linda Sanger. We give money from the fund to the West Hancock Hall of Fame. We give scholarships for graduating seniors. We support the athletic and activity funds, any community outreach needs, whatever someone in the community needs for a good cause that goes back to kids and community. We like to give money back and help those things. If you want to sponsor the podcast, you can get a hold of me. Or if you want to just give to the Sanger Strong Legacy Fund, you can go to sangerstrong.com to learn and give more. And I mentioned the West Hancock Hall of Fame that's coming up here about, I don't know, a month and a half, about 2 months from now, less than 2 months, September 6th, after the Belmont Clemmy home football game. We'll announce and have the honorees at the track at halftime. And then after the game, we'll be at the Britt Golf Course for a semi-formal induction ceremony. And Linda Sanger, like we already mentioned, she will be one of the inductees this year. So we're really excited to honor those people and those teams. Way back when, 50 episodes ago, I interviewed Doug Sickles, and 100 episodes ago, I talked to Stacey and Seth Goepel. So make sure you check out those episodes. If you missed them, I'll have them linked in my social media posts as well. All right, we're going to get things rolling with the Rietema brothers. I'm down here in Iowa. They're both up in Michigan. We'll start with you, Tony, since you're the older one. Tell everyone, again, who you are, where you're living these days, job, family, all that good stuff.
Yeah. First, thanks for putting this all together, Dan. It's cool to watch some of these episodes and get to know some of the other sports that I wasn't involved in, or different time frames that happened before and after. Just kind of helps everybody stay connected. But I am up in West Michigan here in a town called Allegan. Married to my wife of just past 19 years, and we have 5 daughters, ranging going to be a senior in high school here, and then all the way down to 2nd grade. So 5 girls, and co-own and operate a couple of campgrounds here in West Michigan, and a couple other little side businesses here and there, some real estate here and there. But I spend most of my days just at the campground and with my family.
5 girls. Oh boy.
Yep.
Yeah. God bless you.
Yeah. Thanks.
How about you, Kurt? Yes. Kurt has 4 kids. You guys are, between the two of you, you're busy.
Yeah. Thanks again for putting this on. It's awesome to see old classmates and, students and athletes from other years too. And yeah, very, very well done, and fun to, stay connected with Iowa. So and West Hancock. So yeah, I am up in West Michigan also, a town called Hamilton. It's just south of Holland. And I am married to my wife, Amy, from California. We've been married about 18 years, and we have 4 kids. So we have 3 girls and a boy, ranging from a freshman in high school this coming fall, 8th grader, and then a 7-year-old and 5-year-old. So yeah, stay busy with the kids. I own a brokerage, a real estate brokerage called Home for Good Realty. So I'm the broker and owner, and I have a few agents, but yeah, doing real estate full time here in West Michigan, and yeah, loving it. So.
And before we were recording, I asked how close you guys were, and you said you're about 10 minutes apart. Get to see each other quite a bit, involved with each other's lives. That's pretty neat. And then you said your parents moved up there. When did your parents move up there from the Pella area?
Yeah, our parents moved up here in 2010, so they've been up here a while. Yeah, I'm from Allegan, but we do school of choice here to Hamilton. So actually, Kurt's kids and my kids go to school together, and we go to church together and stuff like that too. So we see each other quite frequently, I'd say.
Nice. And you said Julie's in the Sacramento, California area, and Angie's still in the Pella area. So do you guys get back to Iowa very often, or is it mostly people coming your way with all the kids and the travel stuff?
We were there just a few weeks ago for our niece's wedding. Angie's oldest got married, so we all went down there and we're in Pella for the weekend, and it was fun to be back. And yeah.
Yeah, not as much as we'd like with for me with my work and working campgrounds in the summer. It's tough to you get outside the school year, and that's really when I'm quite busy. So I really don't travel a ton. We try to pack that into Christmas break and stuff like that. And quite honestly, I'm not too fond of Iowa the first part of January. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And where's your wife from, Tony?
In the least offensive way possible.
Yeah. Oh, I don't blame you. The older I get, the more I'm like, why are we here? Like,
yeah.
I always used to make fun of people that would snowbird down south. I'm like, really? Suck it up. And now I'm pushing 40. Yeah, I get it. So it makes a lot of sense. So, yeah. Where's your wife from, Tony?
She's from Holland here. Yeah, we met at Camp Geneva on the north side of Holland, and she's a Holland Christian grad.
Nice. And Kurt, you said your wife's from California. How'd you guys end up meeting?
Yeah, it's kind of a unique story. We'll probably talk about some of this, but I went after Central College. I had done a trip to YWAM, Youth with a Mission, and we did a mission trip to Africa, and I actually met her parents before I met her.
Oh, cool.
They secretly wanted to set us up, but we eventually did meet and get married. So
nice.
Yeah, kind of a unique story, but
that's neat. Yeah, and there's a little connection between us here. Your parents, when they lived in the West Hancock area, bought the old Christian Reformed Church, and my parents bought that from your parents. I put down the notes, maybe 2002, something like that, because I remember at least my junior year, going before my senior, we moved up to Buffalo Center. So we bought that big, huge church building from your parents across from the Catholic Church. Did you guys live there at all? Or you were probably gone by then, just come back for the summers mostly? Did you guys live in the Chouse is what we called it?
I did. They moved in there when I was a junior at West Hancock, so I was there about a year, and then yeah, as soon as I graduated, then they moved to Pella, and yeah, we called it the Chouse as well. And Dad had turned the lower level into more of a youth center, so there was racetrack and ping pong, foosball, and basketball stuff, and yeah.
Yep, we bought it fully furnished with all that stuff, and my parents ran it for a while as the youth center. And we'd get a game of hide and seek going in that place. You get about 15 neighborhood kids in town there, and you get about lost in that place. So it was a good house until my dad had to pay the heating bills in the winter, and he's like, nope, we can't do this very long. So got out of there. So
yeah, kind of try to block off the sanctuary area and then use all the other areas. We had a basketball hoop going up the front steps, so you could just sit there and shoot free throws. And I don't know if that was still there with you guys.
Yep. had that silver tarp underneath it, and they would just
Yep.
come right back to you.
Yep.
Yeah. If you my dad would get mad because if you would not catch the ball on its way down, it would smack that glass door, and you could hear it halfway across the house. So I always remember that. So all right, let's jump into some football here. We got a lot of stuff to talk about, so I want to keep things moving. Tony, you graduated in '98, like I said. Kurt, you graduated 2000. I'd like to start off with some West Hancock football. Tony, you got your state champion shirt on from 1996, so I want to jump into that season a little bit as well. You played for Coach Sanger from 1994 to 1997. Those 4 years combined, West Hancock went 42-5, 3 district titles, quarterfinal trophy, 2 semifinalist trophies, and then a state championship your junior year in 1996. No stats varsity wise your first couple years. That was pretty typical back then, though. It was you paid your dues until you got to be a junior and a senior to really get in there and play. Just had a lot of depth, a lot more guys on the team. 93, they were coming off a runner-up finish, that 22-21 loss in the state championship. 94 made it to the quarterfinals, lost to Emmitsburg twice. 95 got back to the Dome, undefeated until the semis, lost to Sigourney Keota 14-0. Did you play any varsity? Did you dress varsity as a sophomore? Do you remember, Tony?
No, I didn't. I didn't play any. I think they threw my name on like the roster. They threw a couple of our names on the roster just in case they needed to dress us for whatever reason. So I think my name was on the roster for the playoffs, but I didn't play any varsity ball freshman or sophomore year.
Yeah, you guys pretty solid at the JV level.
Yeah, I feel like, man, I mean, you probably know the stats better than I do. I mean, if my memory serves correct, I think, freshman year, because of, I mean, you just said the statistics over those 4 years. My freshman year and the team or the class above me, I mean, eventual state champions when they were seniors, we were pretty stacked JV year. When I was a freshman, I think we went 7-0, 8-0, something like that. That's probably all the more games you had on the JV, and then my sophomore year, we went for sure above 500. I think we only lost 1 or 2 games, maybe my sophomore year. So yeah, it was good, but yeah, I mean, there's the grades above me were stacked. I mean, it's tough to get playing time, and I think that was the case for a long time there. You definitely had to pay your dues, and I mean, lots of really good seasons and a lot of good upperclassmen players all the time. So.
Yeah, I try to tell people because nowadays, we're still winning championships, but there's 40 to 45 kids on the team. And once the varsity's got a 40-point lead, you put the next group in, and that's the freshmen and sophomores essentially. Back when we played, you guys played, if the starters got pulled because they're up by so much, it was the next wave of junior and seniors that came in.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
some of these guys and their stats look pretty good, but they also got to play a lot more than we did or you guys did. And we had the 50-point rule up until my senior year. And then, some of those games, I remember your junior season, that 96 game, there were some games where it was over a minute into the third quarter.
Yeah.
You make it past halftime. So do you remember the Justin Palmer game your sophomore year?
I remember it. I mean, I remember where I was standing and watching and stuff like that. I was actually just trying to recall that because I was kind of in your notes, and I was watched it all happen from the same. I was just standing outside the fence, but I was on the side that it was all happening where he was scoring the touchdowns, and I was super excited. I think I was, if my memory serves correct, again, 8th grade year to get to the Dome. When I was in 8th grade, the year we ended up losing in the state championship, I think we maybe played like Lorenz Marathon or something like that. And I was standing in the exact same spot for that game when I think it was Dan Cooper caught a long ball, and he was down on the other end of it, but I was standing in the exact same locations for both of those events. Just staying outside the fence, but always right next to it watching. So
yeah.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, in 95 against Emmitsburg, Justin Palmer had 3 scoop and score fumble recoveries for touchdowns in like less than a minute or just over a minute of game time. And they were all almost the exact same yardage between 18 and 21 yards or something like that. It was
Yeah.
like deja vu at 3 times. It was just crazy. So,
Yeah,
all
I'll
right.
bet Justin probably wouldn't even know that he's been the legend for the last 30 years, because of that, quite epic.
Yeah, I was too young to remember it, but just always heard people talking about it. So
Yeah.
yeah, your junior season, 96, 13-0 state champs. Uh, just kind of almost cracked me up to a degree when I was going through the record book looking at your statistics. How tall were you at that point? 6'5"?
It's probably 6'4", probably.
And then you had Ben Evans, who was about the same, maybe even taller.
Yeah,
And
a little taller. Yeah.
yeah, when I can't remember everything, and I looked back, I'm like, oh, between Tony and Ben, they probably each caught a bunch of passes. You didn't catch a single pass that entire season. Ben had 12 catches for 283 yards. And then second place on the reception list that year, typical West Hancock football, Jeff Sanger with 2. Then I have a buddy from Dike, New Hartford, and they're a pass happy team back when we
Yeah.
played. And he would always laugh at our stats. He'd be like, the guy in 13 games had 12 catches and he was the leader. And I said, he was the leader by 10. Went from
Yeah.
12 to 2, and then
Yep.
5 guys had 1 catch each.
Yeah.
What was your role offensively as a junior, if at all?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, freshman, sophomore, I was still trying to earn playing time. I mean, you're still trying to make yourself known. And so offensively, my junior years, I would rotate in mostly with Jason Fetters. And so we would run the plays in a lot at the tight end position. And so him and I split it. So I guess, if he got that one, he did get one pass. So I guess I was just out for that play. Probably would have been mine had I been in. But I think, I mean, you said it, 18 passes the whole year. On the entire year, it was 18 catches.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's how much we needed to pass. I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but we didn't need to. We just ran over everybody.
And I would venture to guess if you went back and watched the film, if I got Al DeWard up and said, Al, show me all the games, you said you needed 18. Probably 9 of them were necessary. The other 9 coach was like, well, we might as well get some practice in. We're up by 43 points or whatever. It was like,
Yeah.
it just wasn't even a necessity, and it resulted in a state championship. It just kind of, we'll talk a little bit about Central. Tony was a Central College team MVP as a senior, 5th-year senior, as a receiver. And I'm like, well, then of course, if he was at that level at college, you go back to high school, his numbers had to have been crazy. It's like, no, not in the offense we were in. It was run heavy offense. So it kind of made me smile and shake my head at the same time. Like, that's old school West Hancock football right there. So, but defensively, it looked like that's where you shined in that 96 team. You had 69 tackles, 2 interceptions, both of them in the first round playoff game against Lake Mills. What do you remember about those Lake Mills games? Because in the regular season, 1 versus 2, we beat them 76-28, and then in the playoffs, 59-30. Just crazy scores. Big games. What do you remember about Lake Mills?
Yeah, I mean, Lake Mills specifically, I think my junior year there, I started probably more at cornerback the first couple games of the season. And then I think it turned into we kind of had it in our back pocket that when Stensrud went out for a pass, Perkins wanted someone a little bit taller on him. And so that's when I really started playing a lot more strong safety, was actually that first Lake Mills game, as far as I recall. I think I actually got some switched into like during that game. And then it just kind of stuck with me staying in that strong safety position, which again, I mean, we had probably more 8 guys in the box than anything else, but then that's what it turned into in that playoff game. The first round playoff game was me matched up on Stensrud, mostly just because of my height. I mean, I was taller than the other defensive backs, and so it was probably a little better matchup just height wise and maybe jumping wise or something like that to just match up with Andy Stensrud, who I feel like he was 6'8", 6'9", maybe, and he was, I mean, 270 pounds. I don't know, he was a big kid, but I think just having me mark up on him kind of left some other people open or more available to stop the run and stuff like that. So when he went out for a pass, that was kind of my job to cover him for Lake Mills.
Yeah. And the more I'm thinking about this, you were 6'4", and what'd you weigh probably as a junior?
Oh, 180 maybe.
That sounds like a middle linebacker, 6'4", 180, and you were playing safety and cornerback. Yeah, I mean that defense was just stacked. I'm almost surprised you had 69 tackles just because I don't imagine a lot of plays getting past the first 5 yards. Our defense was so good up front and linebacker wise. Then you and Chad Klein and trying to think who else was playing in the secondary. And that defense was
We'll
just
probably had some, yeah, probably
Nick Drake.
Drake and Iceman, probably at the corners, I think.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's a who's who of all-star football players right there on that defense. So
Yep.
talk about winning the state championship. 17-14 beat Galen in the finals. Ben Bergman's kick towards the end there after Chad Klein couldn't get in on 3 straight QB sneaks. What was
Yep.
that like winning that state title for Coach Sanger and yourself and your team?
Well, I mean, I would imagine for any state championship, it's always just cool to be a part of it. I mean, I remember the garage doors coming up and, us running onto the field, and it's a special moment because you worked so hard. I mean, you pay your dues. The last time we were in the state championship was 8th grade. It was my 8th grade, and it was just a heartbreaker. And so to work hard to get back to that moment and just the different events that happened throughout the game and stuff like that. I mean, we missed that. What was it? Probably 4th and 7 midfield I think it was a dive play or an inside trap play with Jeremy Heyer, and he got 6 yards of the 7. We turned the ball over, and I mean that was like one of my memories was then getting back. We're back on defense, and Jeremy was just so mad at himself for not getting that extra yard. And I mean, I remember him just getting all like just almost foaming at the mouth type stuff. So I'm gonna get the ball back. I'm gonna get the ball back, and so that series, I think that first series, I don't know if the first or second play, he blitzed through the line, recovered the fumble or caused the fumble. Can't remember how it played out, but just like the look in his eyes and the want, I mean, and everybody had that. But then as the time was winding down and we were up 17-14, and they're trying to kick that whatever it was, high 40s field goal, 48-yard field goal or so.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of preparation for that exact play on what to do. And so it was just, I remember me and Chad like back on the 5 or 10 yard line saying, okay, if they're gonna fake and do a Hail Mary and try to win this, it's up to us. And so Chad and I were probably the closest to the goalpost when the ball fell short, and just kind of I'm watching the ball go over my head, but coming up short, and then looking back and everybody's already celebrating and just running to everybody, and so yeah, just it's a special moment, it's a special moment.
Yeah. Very similar now that I think about it to this last football season, 2023. West Hancock's up 2 with 3 seconds left. They tried it was like a 48-yarder freshman kicker, and it landed well short, but it was like, oh boy, this thing goes in. That's going to be a devastating way
Yeah,
to
because
do this thing.
You don't know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tip your cap to him if he makes a 48-yard field goal in the state championship. So
yeah, for sure.
Kurt, you were a freshman this season, so you both were per se a part of the state championship. You weren't, playing varsity as a freshman, but you were still on the high school team. What do you remember about the state title, watching your brother on the field that day?
Yeah, it was surreal. I mean, all of us freshmen were up in the stands, just as spectators, but like we were super pumped because we'd practice and be on the practice squad, and yeah, it was one of those things where as a freshman you're watching it and you're just like, we want to be the next group to do this, like, and it just like creates this, all right, we're gonna do it, when we're seniors, or like we're gonna work as hard as we can to have that moment, because you felt the emotion even from the stands of like, yeah, like you're almost tearing up, like, yeah, we did it, as a school, and even as a freshman, you just felt a part of it,
Yeah, definitely. And then so that was just your junior year, Tony. So you had your senior year in '97. You guys went 10-2 that year, lost to Newman in the regular season. I remember that game. On the way back home, I've told this on the podcast before. My dad, my sister, and I, and one of her friends were in the car, and we got smoked a deer. Went right in front of our windshield. Just remember, still for some reason, remember that loss. I couldn't believe we lost the game because we hardly ever lost games at that point, and then we hit a deer. So, but you guys got
Yep.
some payback in the first round of the playoffs against them on your way to the semis. But you had a lot bigger role offensively, unlike your junior year. Uh, as a receiver slash tight end, you had 16 catches for 336 yards and 4 touchdowns. You even ran the ball 6 times in a game for 74 yards and 2 touchdowns. Was that, I can't remember exactly. Was it when someone was injured they had you step in a running back role?
No, no, they actually kind of, I'd say created a little bit of a play for me. I mean, it was a dive end around, and so it would be like a 45 dive, but then it was, instead of any like a guard pulling, I would step back and then run around the other side. And so Sanger kind of threw that play in there. It was actually I think it was the week we played Newman the first time. So we had that in our bag when we lost to them at home. And like that was like that event was probably for me like my most personal moment with Coach Sanger was probably after that game, because I mean, for like all of my varsity career, which was just my junior year, we hadn't lost a game, and then we go through the first, I don't know what it was, we won the first 6 games, and so like I hadn't lost on varsity. My age group had not lost, and then we lost to Newman at home, and I can still remember after the game, and I had 2 touchdowns in that game on that play, just end around. I think that was where it was at. But I remember just being devastated after the game, and Coach Sanger singling me out because I mean, shook hands, but I couldn't hardly walk off the field. I was just so disappointed,
Yep.
And he just said, "Hey, pick your chin up. We're going to get these guys in 3 weeks again, and we're going to get them." Knowing that, hey, we might get these guys first round of the playoffs, and that was just Bob Sanger to me right there, and memories that I still carry now, 30 years later, or whatever it is. Or just, it wasn't only about football. It was building character. It was building, quality men. He always called us gentlemen. Hey, gentlemen, let's, and I'll tell you what, young men, he would treat us with respect. And so he demanded, more of everybody. And so like that moment, even though in that loss, was one of my favorite moments of Coach Sanger.
Yeah.
Was that first Newman game. But it was good to get a crack at Newman a couple weeks later and beat them on their turf in that first round as well.
Yeah. I like how you mentioned that, because I've gotten to know the Sangers very well over the years now, and they'll all say, "Oh, our dad was one of the sores. He hated losing so much." But what I appreciated now that I look back on it, you never knew that right after a loss. Like after that Newman game, he didn't lose his mind or flip out or blame it on the kids or anybody. He did that type of stuff that you just mentioned, and then he'd go home and that's when he'd soak in that loss or take that in. But it was never out in the open or around the kids or in the locker room. He always waited for that moment where he could sulk. So another reason why he's one of the best. So yeah, you guys lost to Wapsie Valley 22-18 in your last game as a senior in the Dome. Did my research. Wapsie went on to beat Pekin 40-15 in the finals. So that's another one of those years. We have lots of years in West Hancock football where like we lost to the eventual state champs, and if you look at the next round or rounds, like if we would just one more play or 2 more plays here, a couple more yards, won that, we probably would have won by 25 like they did against Pekin in the finals. Did you feel that way? Like that one got away from us?
Yeah, I mean, I hats off to Wapsie. That, I mean, they were a good team, and they'd be. I mean, I felt like we were playing a little bit of catch up the game against them, but it was probably at the time too. I mean, I didn't go back to that game to watch Wapsie play Pekin. So I would imagine that we probably would have fared well just, based on scores and based on losing to the state champs. If you're winning by 30 and you lose to them by 4, speculation. But yeah, of course we would have, Dan. Of course we would have.
There we go.
Of course we would have won state.
That's the right.
Is that what you were looking for?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we would have won. We would have beat everybody.
There you go. I like it. Just going through the trophies, and Britt, we got 10 state final trophies, 5 champs, 5 runner-ups. And you look back on some of those games, you're like, oh, we could have had about 10 more hypothetically playing that game. But it's a lot of fun to do and heartbreaking at the same time, but most people would be thrilled to be in our spot as is. So their coach that year, or for many years at Wapsie, was Jerry Southmaid. Was Jerry at Central when you guys were there? I feel like that was about your last year, Tony, and Kurt, your last couple of years. Did Jerry come on as an assistant about then?
He was a receivers coach when I was at Central.
Okay, so maybe 02 is maybe when he came on. Do you remember him, Tony? That would have been your last year.
Yeah, I remember him. I can't recall if he was receivers, or I think he might have even been quarterbacks coach for a year there too.
Okay.
But I can't recall exactly.
Yeah, he was there all my years there, and I love talking to Jerry. He's a good guy. So, Kurt, you had those same 2 years as Tony's last 2 as a JV guy. You stepped in 98, 99. In 98, you had 1 catch for 12 yards. You had an interception on defense. You had 33 tackles. And then your senior year, you guys went 7-3 after missing the playoffs at 7-2. Lost in the first round to Iowa Falls, I believe, like 18-15 or something like that. Talk about your last couple years. Maybe not the same experience as a couple domed experiences that Tony had his last 2, but still, I always joke we're like, oh, 7-2, what a horrendous year that was for us. I'm like, what percentage of the state of Iowa would be like, I would have loved to have been 7-2, and you guys are over there acting like the world's ending. So, what do you remember about your last couple years?
It's been said on this podcast before, but like so my junior and senior year, we had to bump back up to 2A instead of 1A. And like our teams, my junior and senior year, I think would have, had some sort of trophy coming home too in 1A. But, that's just how it goes. We got bumped up. But yeah, junior year, I mainly played defense. I, was cornerback, and it was disappointing. We missed the playoffs, and, we were probably good enough to be a playoff team, but didn't make it with how they cut it. And then, senior year, there's lots of memories I have of senior year. We lost to Cresco first game. They were a 3A playoff team, and the Emmetsburg game, we lost at Emmetsburg. And, I think Coach Sanger was quoted even in the paper, like Mark Sanger had gotten across the goal line multiple times, and they kept marking him 6 inches short, and you'd 344 or 245 dive, go across the goal line, and then they'd mark us short again. And but we got beat by a couple touchdowns. But I think what stood out to me that season was we didn't let anyone score on our home field. But that Iowa Falls game, we played well enough to beat them. I think we had a fumble on our own, within our own 20, that they scored, and then so we were kind of playing catch up the rest of the game, and kind of I think that was the most passes I ever caught was in that game. But it felt like we were more desperation passing because we we're playing catch up. But I think they ended up losing to the eventual champions. But it was disappointing. And one of my memories too was when we lost Iowa Falls, and Coach Sanger usually didn't come to the back of the bus where we were sitting, but I mean, he came back when we were back on the bus, and he walked back to us seniors in the back and just was consoling us and telling us how proud he was of us. And that was just a special memory with Coach Sanger too, of just like, you played your hearts out, and I'm proud of you, and keep your chin up, because this isn't life, this isn't everything. And again, that's who he was too, just trying to develop character. And I totally agree. He'd always call you a young man and just be very positive. And maybe he went home and was upset, but he just was very respectful of us. And I think that's why everyone respected him so much, just he commanded respect when you were in the room with him, and just treated everyone with respect, and people gave it back to him. So
Yeah. Yeah, I put down my notes. You play with Jason Harley. He's been a podcast guest. Nick Schmidt's been a podcast guest. Adam Klein, John Brummer, Mark Sanger, like you already mentioned. Mark's now the head coach, obviously. He has less losses than seasons coached. He's 5 seasons, 4 losses with 3 state titles, a runner-up, and a quarterfinalist trophy. And that quarterfinalist trophy, and a lot of people will be like, "Oh, we could have, one of those woulda, coulda, shoulda seasons again. We probably could have been a finalist type team." Did you see that in Mark? I know Doug Sickles, 50 episodes ago, I highlighted earlier, he was his junior high coach, and he goes, when he got his pads in 7th grade, he could hardly contain himself. He was so excited. Like, he just bleeds West Hancock red, What'd you see in Mark even back then? Do you remember those leadership qualities in him that he's showing now?
yeah, he definitely had leadership qualities. I played with him at West Hancock and at Central. And I mean, I remember even one of our last games to get to the playoffs my senior year, we were playing Eagle Grove. And I think you've talked about this too. Like, it was the lightning rain delay that went when we were playing past midnight, because we had to get that game in. We had to beat them by a certain amount of points. But I would say the same thing. Like, in that game, Mark had that look in his eyes of like, we're not gonna lose this game, and I'm gonna do everything I can. And he had like a ton of tackles that game. And but I think he had that same attitude that, Coach Bob Sanger had, just like, you work hard and you do the right things, and success is going to follow you. And I think that's kind of the mentality he had back then, and he probably still does now. But just, yeah, commands respect when people are around him. So
Did the math here. Your 4 years, Kurt, you guys went 37-7. If you combined both of your 4-year records, 79-12. That's a lot of wins to not very many losses, and a lot of those losses are combined because your first 2 years, Kurt, and your last 2 years, Tony, were the same years. So, what led you guys both to Central College in Pella? How'd you end up in Pella? It's been more of a Tony question since you went first.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's a huge tie, right, from West Hancock to Central College, just through the Sangers. I think I was the only trying to think. I think I was the only one from my class that went to play football there, but there was there 3 in the class above me. I mean, Jeff, Chad, and Alex, I think, all went there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there was any more, but
Those 3 for sure.
that was part of the draw, and there was kids older than them, and obviously behind me and stuff like that. And so if I think that it's a fairly natural place to go. It was, I guess, a little bit interesting for me because I had the inner desire to play wide receiver, but obviously we're not a high school passing strong. I mean, we already went through the stats, so I was probably more recognized for defense, Shrine Bowl and all that different stuff. So I didn't really have a lot of reason to go play wide receiver, but that's what I ended up doing. And yeah, I was probably the kids that were the grade older than me was probably the biggest draw, and a strong football history.
Yeah. Kurt, did you consider anywhere else, or was it always Central for you?
yeah, like senior year, I actually wasn't sure if I was going to play sports in college. I kind of wanted to go out to Colorado or go somewhere out west with the mountains. I just had gone skiing there a bunch of times with church, and then like, I just want to get away. And Coach Cat came and recruited quite hard, and I think it was because Tony was already there. It was like, we want to get the younger brother too. And
Yeah.
but I kind of had said, if I'm going to go anywhere to play sports, it's going to be Central. I mean, after my visit there, just like, it's either I'm going to go somewhere out west and not play sports, or I'll play sports and I'll do it at Central. And so, yeah, I just kind of felt towards the end of my senior year, yeah, I'm going to go. I want to play football. And yeah, Mike Rasmussen and Adam Klein, we all went and played football at Central from my grade. So.
Yep, Adam followed Chad, and then Mike was the first of the 3 Rasmussen boys. Then Nate followed Mike, and Aaron followed Nate. So it was there was that whole decade obviously decade before with Rick and Kevin Sanger and others, but that 2000s decade, there was a lot of Central guys. When I was there, it was me, Don DeWard, Jeff Sanger, and Kevin Sanger just on the staff from West Hancock. And then there's Chad Eisman, Justin Johnson, Ryan Johnson, Taylor Vanden Weinboom, Aaron Rasmussen, Nate Rasmussen. I feel like I'm still missing one or two. It was just a ton of Britt West Hancock guys. It was pretty cool. So, Tony, you ended up going 5 seasons because your senior football season in high school was 97, but you played 98, 99, 2000, 01, and 02. What happened to give you that 5th year?
Well, there was no year 3 and 4. That's what happened. Actually, I transferred to Dordt College, and they didn't have football. And so my 5th year was actually probably would be my junior year of eligibility, football wise, sports wise. So it was 2 years at Central, playing freshman, sophomore, and then I transferred to Dordt College. And then because of credits transferring and lack of transferring and stuff like that, went back to Central for my 5th year academic and 3rd year playing football, and then graduated from Central.
Okay. I was unaware you went to Dordt.
Yeah. Yep. 3. Three football seasons at Central.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. That last season of yours, you won the Hirama Schilder MVP blanket, the team MVP award. You were one of 6 times that a West Hancock player has won that award. Rick Sanger won it once, Jeff Sanger won it twice, you won it once, and Mark Sanger won it twice. You got Sangers and a Rietema winning that award. What were your experiences like at Central playing football? What are some of your memories that you remember?
Oh, it was good. It was good overall. I mean, freshman and sophomore year was, a lot of learning. Freshman year, I kind of started seeing some varsity time at the end of the year, freshman year, and then sophomore year I was a starter, but kind of found out during college that football probably wasn't my entire life, and I had kind of made it my life, and so it was just a little bit of a internal reset, transferring to Dordt College and stuff like that, but still had that itch, and coming back for the 5th year, it was good to kind of close it out. And Kurt was on the team then as well. I feel like you were maybe injured that year though. I can't remember if that was
broke my foot that year.
Yeah. So it was kind of a hope to play together, but Kurt had broke his foot, and so I mean it was fun to be a part of that 5th year, because it was, again, like even some Brit players, like I got to play with obviously the guys that were older than me, starting out. And then that 5th year, I got to play with Mark, who I had never played with, or, some of the guys that were younger than me, as they were coming up. Less matters in college on the freshman through senior scale, not like high school where you kind of pay your dues. Hey, it's just the best, there's a lot more freshmen and sophomores playing in college than there is in high school. So, but it was good. It's good.
And you mentioned Coach Cack, Rich Kack-Marinsky. He took over for Ron Skipper. Skipper was there from 61 to 96. Legendary guy. Anyone who maybe doesn't even know Central football might even know Ron Skipper. Kack-Marinsky, him and his older brother, was an All-American. Got votes for the Heisman. He came in 97 for Coach Skipper and was there from 97 to 03, which would have been Kurt's last year. I didn't get to know Rich personally. It was Coach Mick Martin, so we went from Coach Cack to Coach Mack when I was there. But he's now the Pella Christian football coach, and I heard nothing but great things about him as a person and a man of faith. So what do you guys remember about playing for Coach Cack?
Yeah, really, really great guy. Yeah, man of faith and very intense. And one of my, I was trying to think of some specific memories. So my freshman year, Central College had a really good football team. I think they went undefeated. And then in the playoffs, if you want to look this up on YouTube, but that was the year of the Miracle in the Mud. So look up Miracle in the Mud, Central College. And they, I was listening to the radio as a freshman because I wasn't playing, but down by 3, I believe, trying to kick a field goal to tie it in the mud. And, it went into the scrum basically. And then Joe Ritzert came out and scored the touchdown. So they ended up winning. But that very next game, I think we were hosting the playoff game against St. John's, who ended up being the runner-up to
Sure.
the team that won it, I think. I'm blanking on the name.
Probably Mount Union.
Yes. So St. John's barely lost to them in the finals, but Central was hosting St. John's, and I think it snowed a ton the night before or during the night of that playoff game. And so as a freshman, Coach Cack called up a few of us freshmen like at 4 a.m. or something and woke us up and is like, you got to get down to the field and start shoveling the snow. And you got to wake up your other buddies and your teammates, you know? So then we had to start calling other freshmen or people that weren't dressing, and we had to go shovel snow in the dark to get the field ready for that playoff game. And I think it was that very next week. But that was one of the memories I have of Coach Cack.
Yeah. Just like at the University of Iowa. Hey, we need the players to shovel off the field, you know, it's just
Yep.
just like that. So I've never heard that story before, and I've sat around those coaches a lot. My cousin Scott Van Tiger played the same years you played. He's a Buffalo Center guy, and I think he got the Most Improved Player award, the Clausen Award, your senior year. He was also a receiver. Just saw Scott the other day, so a little connection there as well. So, where'd life take you guys after college? Tony, you got done with Central in football 2002, 2003. Now you're up in Michigan 20 years later. How'd you end up there?
Yeah, I mean, I actually moved up here. Well, right after, as soon as I got done playing that season of my fifth year academically, I really only needed like 3 more credits to graduate, and so I moved up to Michigan right around Christmas time in 2002 there, and just kind of finished. I had to take like a mission trip to Mexico and write a paper to get 3 credit hours, kind of a cross-cultural thing. So I moved up to Michigan here, and then I've been up here ever since. Met my wife at Camp Geneva, and so it was right after college, and just started out doing some odd jobs, you know, painting and stuff like that. But I got into the campground world, and I guess the rest is history. I've kind of always done that since college. So yeah, a little bit married into it, but it's been great.
I was going to ask what classes you had to take that 5th year, because I know when I was in college, we had some 5th year guys, and one took like fundamentals of racquetball, fundamentals of softball. It was like that last semester was awesome. It sounds like you had a little better experience than just taking those classes.
I mean, one of them was fundamentals of golf, which is, I mean, it's a lifelong thing, you know. That's I was a general studies major, so whatever that means. People ask me, what is general studies? I think it's one of the biggest majors at Central College, because it's kind of pre-masters, med school, pre all of that. You kind of tailor your program, your degree to, furthering education. But, people say, well, what did you use it for, Tony? I was trying to just graduate. That's all I was trying to do.
Yeah.
So
play football and graduate.
Yeah.
Kurt,
when I had to fill some credits too, I took some of those fundamentals of cardiovascular endurance, fundamentals of tennis, fundamentals of basketball classes too. So
did you guys ever take fundamentals of racquetball with Coach Bowser?
I don't think
I didn't take the class, but I played him just for the heck of it.
Did you even attempt to score a point on him? He was amazing.
Oh man, I probably got injured more than I scored points on that guy.
Yeah, he would get that corner shot on us. I took his class, and he was hard to understand as is, but then you put him in a echoey racquetball court, and he'd tell you to do something. You're like, I'm just going to hit the ball at the wall and see if he gives me a thumbs up or thumbs down. But then he'd play us. Yeah. He wouldn't move an inch, and we'd be running back and forth. And yeah, you'd ram into the wall. I'm like, this guy is phenomenal. He was like a 4-sport athlete when he was in college, and had a lot of fun with him. Coach DeWard, you guys were offensive players, but did you ever see Coach DeWard lose his mind a couple times on the sidelines? I'm sure.
Yeah, it probably happened a few times.
Yeah, it would happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was a Coach Sanger type of guy, though. He would lose his mind on the field, but he'd be the first guy to put his arm around you afterwards. And
he knew his stuff, though. I mean, he was X's and O's like this is how it needs to be. So
Yeah. Oh, he was good. I was his assistant linebackers coach for 2 years, so I'd always make sure his footballs were set up and drills are ready to go, and run part of the drill for him on the other side. And it took me about 6, 7 weeks into my first year there to not just be absolutely terrified of the guy, in terms of not wanting to mess up. Not that he was a jerk. He's one of the nicest humans in the world, but just like, I don't want to do anything wrong. I want to make sure his drills are run perfectly. So a lot of good times up at Central. Real quick, you're going back to high school. I want to talk basketball because Tony, you were on the 96, 97. I think it was a 4-way tie for the conference title. So literally half the teams won the conference that year. I'd say this is probably the sport you excelled in the most. You were 15 to 20 point game type of guy. Another hypothetical here. In district finals, your junior year, you had Nick Drake, Jeff Sanger, who one of the Sangers did play basketball, for those of you that didn't know, Chad Klein, Ben Evans, Ronnie Lamfers. You guys lost to St. Ansgar 63 to 52. They went on to lose in the state title game by 6 to Bondurant Farrar. Another hypothetical there. Did you guys have your chances to win that game against St. Ansgar? Were you always playing catch up? What was remember what that game was like?
I mean, I don't remember every play of that game for sure. But I remember the atmosphere. I think we played that game over at like Clear Lake or something like that. And it was just a packed house.
Yep.
And they were good. They had some athletes on that team and some height and stuff like that. Man, it's hard to play that out because I felt like we were pretty good. I felt like that year we probably shouldn't, like, we probably could have won, the conference outright and stuff like that. I don't think that would have changed anything in the playoffs and stuff like that. But we were knocking on the door, and which was unique. I mean, we weren't that great at basketball overall. I mean, it'd been some years since we had seen, conference championships and stuff like that. So, but it was just fun to be a part of it. I remember Evans had a baseline drive and he dunked it. I thought, what in the world? Why isn't he doing that all year long? But I think he had himself a game, but they had some scores on the other team on St. Ansgar and stuff like that. Ended up becoming friends with a couple of them, because I mean, I think Will Fossey, maybe he was at Central, and Ryan Hannum, I think, was on that team. He ended up playing in the NFL for a little bit there. So they had some athletes, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you guys did too. Let me see. You and Chad Klein were first teamers in the conference. Nick Drake, Ben Evans, Jeff Sanger, second team. Joey Eisman, Ron Lamfers, Dan Schur, honorable mention. And then your senior year, you led the conference, 19.5 points per game. Just real quick researching some basketball, you had back-to-back 30-point games, first team all conference again. Josh Evans, Ronnie, Andy Halick were honorable mention that year. Lost in the first round to St. Ansgar that season, and you had 21 points and 10 rebounds in that game. Was basketball kind of your favorite sport in high school? Where would you kind of rank your activities?
I mean, I don't know about favorite, but you probably said it. I probably excelled at that one the best, or like had the most success in it. I enjoyed it. That's for sure. I think I ended up even getting maybe all honorable mention all state that year with those numbers. But it was fun. I mean, I considered kind of pursuing it a little bit more in college, but man, intramurals was fun too. So I still play basketball even twice a week in the mornings up here in Hamilton. We play at the high school, and so that's even fun. But I certainly can't jump as high, and it's a lot more painful going up and down the floor. But it's still a fun sport to be around, and I like the atmosphere of basketball. Like the crowd is so close.
Yeah.
The crowd is so close, and you can be like, you can go up and high five them if you want to. Just the atmosphere is great. So.
Yeah, I hurt myself playing kickball with fourth graders anymore, so my up and down the floor days are over. That's for sure. But
yeah. And basketball, just like that was one of the few sports that Kurt and I got to play together his sophomore year, because he saw some varsity action. We weren't incredibly deep, and so him and Adam Klein, I think, were playing a fair amount of minutes their sophomore year, and so that was probably one of the only times where we really got to play together, which was certainly a lot of fun because as my numbers kind of increased and stuff, I found those guys underneath the hoop quite a bit for some assists on some backdoor cuts because I was getting double teamed and stuff like that. In the center. But
yeah, did Adam Bird play that year at all with you, or did he not until he was a little bit older? He was in your grade, right, Kurt?
He was my grade. Yeah, he played all the way to senior year.
Yeah, because I just remember I was a manager for at least, I want to say I was a manager for 2 years. Chad Eisman, Justin Johnson, and I for 2 years. When Mark Eisman was an assistant, and Adam was an intense dude on the basketball floor. Him and Coach Drake got into it a few times at practice, I remember, and they were both intense and stubborn, and they had their moments, that's for sure. But yeah, Kurt, you played basketball as well. Second team all conference as a senior, and in my research I found Julia was a second team all conference player on the girls side as a sophomore. And then your family moved to Pella before her junior year. But how were your teams, Kurt, your last couple of years?
Basketball was not a priority for a lot of kids at our school. It was football and track. But yeah, my memory of that St. Ansgar game that Tony was referencing earlier, I mean, and I was a freshman, and I remember right after that game, Coach Drake sat me and Adam Klein down on the bus on their way home from that and said, "I'm going to play you guys next year for varsity." And so, like, it was something like you got to look forward to. And yeah, some of my favorite memories is, starting a few games as a sophomore and playing with Tony. And yeah, my role was definitely feed the ball to Tony. And so I remember just even doing these like fake the shot, but just pass it into Tony and get him the ball. And some of my favorite memories, junior year, I think Josh Evans hit a shot to beat North Iowa at the buzzer. That was pretty fun. Senior year, I think there was only 3 of us seniors that were out the senior year. We just kept dwindling from freshman to senior year. It was Klein, me, and Bird as seniors. And yeah, I think I averaged close to 17 points a game. But Forest City, I mean, they were like top 5 in 3A, and Garner Hayfield was, I think, top 10 in 2A. So like we finished at the bottom of the conference. I mean, I think we upset Osage one time at Osage, and that was, a highlight to, scored 25 or something that game. But we lost more than we won, I think. So,
yeah,
but it was still.
The conference was competitive because you guys are a little older than me, but I played for Drake as well, and yeah, we'd have an occasional loss of 25 points, but for the most part, it wasn't just going to be layup fest against us. We played hard defensively, and talked about maybe basketball wasn't as big a priority for us. When I played, this kid from Lake Mills, I took a college class with, and I said, "What does your coach tell you guys before you play West Hancock in basketball?" And he said, "It's literally just a bunch of football players wearing basketball uniforms, so get ready to get knocked around a little bit." And you talked about intramurals at Central, Tony, and I played on an intramural team with Aaron Rasmussen, Chad Eisman, and Justin Johnson one year with some other football players. And we were like, hey, the 4 of us started together for an entire season, my junior year and Aaron's senior year. And then we got beat by like 60 by Linville Sully's group they had. And like, you guys started varsity basketball. It's like, we were very good on defense. We're just not as accustomed to playing defense anymore in college. But they were like, wow, West Hancock basketball must have been something. But I always told people, like, we were physical, we were competitive, and we didn't make it easy for teams to beat us. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Intramurals at Central was pretty intense. I mean, because it was almost like a step above high school, but yet you weren't, at the college level. But yeah, Tony and I, we won a basketball championship at Central, and volleyball, I think. And I was looking through some of my other shirts, and I think did sand volleyball and another basketball one later. But yeah, pretty fun stuff at intramurals at Central.
Yeah. Did you guys play or run track at all at West Hancock? I'm assuming you're both, I mean, most football players ran track. Did you guys ever make it to state?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Dan, you don't know that I still have the hurdles record at West Hancock.
Which hurdles
For
record? 100 or 4?
110, 110.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah,
What was the time?
yeah. 14.57.
Nice.
So my senior year I got third at state. Um, I mean, like for me, track is such a social sport. But for like the grades that were older than me, as I kind of worked my way in as a freshman, for football, you end up almost being a tackling dummy on the scout team, and but you don't really get to know the older football players very well. Same with basketball. If you're not on varsity, you don't get to know them real well. Track was a sport where I mean, I got to know everybody because you're out there for an hour and a half at practice, but you're not running the full hour and a half. You're stretching with them, like, so there's a lot more conversation, stuff like that. I mean, track was such a social sport. Of course, my freshman year, Coach Sanger had me running with Dan Cooper, which was, I mean, he was like a gazelle. Of course, they probably do things differently now too. He would just take us out on the bus, just out into the countryside, and he'd say, "Get off, Tony. You run with Dan." I'd be, why? Why do I have to?
Try to keep up with them. Good luck.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think he went under 155 in the 800 one time,
Well, he
at the
ran at
state
Iowa
meet. But
State, so
yeah,
I mean,
yeah, no, I think my junior year, the year we won state in football, then like if you look at the specialty positions of that football team in 96, I mean, if you got, say, me and Evans, I rotated in with Fetters, but me and Evans at the ends, and Chad Klein at quarterback, and Jeremy Heyer, and Nick May, and Jeff Sanger, like just the six of us was, I mean, I think that was probably the 4x1 team, 4x2, and 4x4 that year. And I was a hurdler, and of course we had the medley and stuff like that, but there was a few more runners that jumped in here and there, but I think we probably got top 5 in the state that year, team wise too, so yeah, we ran.
I had lunch with Kevin Sanger the other day, and we were looking at the trophies at the school, and he goes, "Everyone thinks of my dad a lot of times football. He was just as good, if not better, track coach than he was a football coach.
Yep.
And that guy knew how to find points. He could move a couple things around, get one kid encouraged enough, like, hey, if I get you in this race, there's only going to be 4 other kids, even if you get last, or we're going to get 2 points out of you. Like he was a master at motivating kids to do their best and work hard, and just knew how to maneuver a lineup as well. So people, obviously, I'm not saying no one knows he was a great track coach, but when you think Bob Sanger, your mind just goes to football. But
Yep.
4 state titles at track, 4 runner-ups, 30 some individual relay team champions, just phenomenal coach. Kurt, how about you in track?
Yeah, I was gonna say back then too, you could qualify all the relays or qualify all the events and then pick and choose. And he was good at, masterminding that stuff. Yeah, in junior high, I was really fast, and then I stopped growing for like 3 years. So in high school, I was, if I thought to myself, if I'm gonna have any chance of running varsity at some point, I need to like switch to long distance. So I started running 800s, and it just was never, um, I got to run 4x8 at state my sophomore year, and then junior year I was injured a little bit, and senior year I would usually run 4x8, 400 hurdles, and 4x4. And there was one meet towards the end of the season, I talked coach into letting me not run the 4x8 because it just wiped me out. Like I hated 800s, and it was not my forte. But I didn't run the 4x8 that meet, and I improved my 400 hurdles time by like 4 seconds, and all of a sudden had one of the top 5 times in the state. And so he was all excited, like, oh, now I could maybe get points from you out of you at state. But yeah, senior year at state track, I had strep throat. I just didn't run very good, and we didn't even make the finals of the 4x4. And then he was like, "Do you want to run the 4x8 because you helped qualify it?" And at that point, he was just like, "No, let one of the younger guys run," because we didn't have a chance to place or anything anyway. So
Yeah.
But yeah, then I grew at least 2 inches in college, and was probably the fastest once I fully matured into my body, late college years. So I was faster then than I was in high school. But
Nice. So we talked a little basketball, a little track. We got to talk about one of the most legendary basketball track athletes in school history. Your cousin, Nate Scher. He's been pumped about you guys coming on for months. When are my cousins coming on? I'm like, oh, I haven't set a date yet. And the other day, he called me the other day when he was driving a guy around for his part-time job, and I said, it's finally coming this Wednesday, July 10th. So, Nate, go. What do you guys say about Nasty Nate is what I call him.
Nasty Nate. I just remember people calling him Nature Boy
Yeah.
all the time. I mean, because we didn't overlap. I mean, we're young enough where, I mean, I think his senior year, I don't even know. I wasn't in high school yet even, so
92 is when he graduated. Yeah.
yeah, we didn't get to, see interactions with him as far as like being in the same school ever, except for, years and years before, because we both went to the Kanawha Christian School growing up. I mean, there's only 60 kids K-8 there. So that was our interactions. But I feel like on the basketball court, he had his own cheering section of, Nature Boy, Nature, that type of stuff. So that was probably one of my biggest memories. Of course, Dan was a year older than me, and Aaron was between Nate's younger brothers there. Dan was a year older, and Aaron was between Kurt and I. So we got to play with them, but not with Nate. So
yeah, him and he'll call me or I'll call him, driving somewhere or whatever, and hour and 15 minutes later, it's like, holy cow. You can just talk all day long. Most positive, happy, nicest, caring guy in the world. So
yep.
I was like, I can't have an episode of you guys and not talk about Nate Scher boy. At least
great.
So
Great.
Yep. Thumbs up for Nate.
Yeah. Shout out to Nate.
Bet. Kurt, you've done some pretty interesting stuff. Talk about hiking. I'm gonna butcher Mount Kilimanjaro 4 times. You've lived in Africa. Talk about you just got back from a trip a couple weeks ago. So talk about some of that stuff you've done more recently and in the past however many years.
Yeah. After college, I had mentioned I went to Tanzania on a mission trip, met my wife's parents, and then we ended up getting married. Then I settled in Pella for about 7 years and worked at a church, youth pastor, missions, college, worship pastor, kind of a little bit of everything. But and we led a couple trips to Tanzania while I was on staff at the church, and then we actually moved to Tanzania to help the ministry there. So we had a 2-year-old and a 9-month-old when we moved there, and we actually thought we'd be there for a long time. So we sold everything in the States, house, cars, furniture, everything, thinking we'd be there. And a couple of years in, we kind of felt called that we were supposed to come back to the States. And so before we left Tanzania, we were still living there, and we had guests that had come climb Mount Kilimanjaro, and I'd always wanted to do it. You fly over it and you see it sticking above the clouds, and you're like, oh, I'd love to do that. And so I asked Tony if he wanted to come hike it, and then Julie wanted to come also. So then my wife said, well, I better come since Julie's coming. So the 4 of us hiked it, and I was kind of using it as like, hey, can I use this as a fundraiser? Like, can I do this again? Like, once I moved back to the States, can I keep doing these types of trips as a fundraiser to raise funds for the ministry? And so the 4 of us hiked it 2015, I think.
That sounds right.
Yep. And it's just, I mean, you could speak on it too, Tony, but like, it's a 7-day trip. So you're hiking 5 to 7 hours a day, and you're sleeping in a tent. And then, but no matter if you take a 13-day trip or a 7-day trip, everyone makes it to base camp, and everyone still has to climb that last 4,000 feet, which is really steep. And you do it at night, with just headlamps and under the stars, and you arrive at the summit around sunrise, and it's just like this overwhelming sense of accomplishment when you finally reach the top. It just, I mean, just very like I don't know, it was one of the funnest things I've ever done in my life. Just and that sense of accomplishment of like I did it, because you never know how your lungs are going to acclimate to it. A lot of people get altitude sickness and stuff, and it's just a really fun, cool experience. So
What do you know what percentage of people that attempt it do it? Is it a pretty low chance of doing it? Did you have to train a lot leading up to it?
I didn't necessarily train a lot that first year. I don't remember the percentages. I would say it's probably a little over 50% that make it. Maybe 60 or 70% make it, because there's no like you're never hooked into ropes. It's not dangerous. You're just walking. So there's never really any chance that you're going to fall off a cliff or anything. But so yeah, the three of us made it. Julie got altitude sickness, but the other three of us made it. And then yeah, so then once I knew I could do that, then when we moved back to the States, I was still kind of working for the ministry stateside and leading trips, and then would lead Kilimanjaro trips to raise funds for the ministry there. So with the 4 trips combined, I think I helped raise like $120,000 to help build the primary school there. They're building a school, like an elementary school. So it was pretty rewarding, getting to go back and like bring people there. We'd hike the mountain, and then I'd bring them to see the ministry and see what they were raising the funds for. And 3 Pella guys went, and some Holland guys in 2016. So I don't know if you would know them, but it's like the start of a joke, like a doctor, a lawyer, and a mortician climb up a mountain. And that's who we had, some guys from Pella. But yeah, it was a big fundraiser, because it kind of just snowballed, and people would match different gifts. But just really, really cool experience to get to do that.
It wasn't Spencer Carlstone, was it?
No, it was a dent Dr. Recker, the dentist.
When you said doctor, I was like, I know him and lady and doctors there in Pella, but I was trying to get a lucky guess there. But so when you get to the top, after you're like, wow, this was incredible, we did it, was your next thought like, oh, now we got to go down? Like, or is that
yeah,
easy?
I mean, the air is pretty thin up there, so I mean, we bring oxygen just in case, but like you basically take your pictures and then start heading down, and it's grueling coming down too, because your footing it's all loose rock, and so you've hiked all night, and then you're hiking that following day all day long. So you're hiking for 14 or 15 hours straight until you get to a low enough level where hopefully the altitude's not bugging you anymore. But it's a
7 days up and just one long day down, essentially.
Yeah, and then you spend a night, and then you go out of the park. But yeah, you're not bathing, you're just kind of showering with wet wipes and sleeping in tents. But I don't know, Tony, if you want to speak into this too, but I think the funnest part of it is like just doing it with people you care about, and you're just getting to see this amazing scenery, and all you're doing is carrying your own little day pack, because they've got porters that are carrying the tents and the food, and they pass you on the trail, they set up your tents, you just show up and your tent's already set up, they've got food prepared for you, and they cook you food, and you just eat and sleep and then start walking again. And it's pretty fun thing to do. So.
And you hiked it just now this last time as well when you were there a couple weeks ago, or?
No, I've done it 4 times. I haven't done it since before COVID. But now I still lead just mission trips from churches. So I got back about a week and a half ago. I led a team of 9 people from 3 churches here in the Holland area, and we just got back. Yeah, usually do like a 2-week trip, and this last trip we went on the longest lake in the world there, and put on 2 youth camps for kind of like a Bible camp for kids. So really rewarding experiences. So
yeah. I was kind of asking, like, what is it that's led you back to Tanzania so many times? What kind of tugged at your heartstrings there?
Well, my wife's parents are still there, so it's definitely that connection. And then because we live there, I still speak a little Swahili, and so I've done enough trips. Last year I went twice, just leading groups. I've led Central College a couple times, their campus ministries group. So yeah, it's become kind of routine. Like I know the ins and outs of leading a group over there, and then do some of the stuff that I did once when we lived there, like lead a camp or um, things like that. So
What church did you work at in Pella?
it's called Federated Fellowship.
Where's that at in Pella? Not familiar with that one.
It's down by like McDonald's and the Hy-Vee
Oh, okay.
part of town.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Talk about people you care about. I want to talk about your sister Julie real quick. She was in my sister's class. Moved away back to Pella after sophomore year of high school, I believe. So she finished her last 2 years in Pella. Um, Besides your sister, that class athletically wasn't a whole lot there. And my sister will attest to that. She goes, I was one of the many that, we were just okay athletes at best. And she was like, we had in middle school and whatnot, we had a freshman year, we had Julie to like carry us. And then she got pulled to varsity for like everything, it felt like. So she was in, it wasn't pretty. Because your sister got pulled to varsity basketball, my sister's JV team got square rooted 2 games in a row. They lost 49-7 and 64-8, I believe, were the scores. And they're like, "Yep, Julie moving up to varsity. Good for her, but it didn't bode well for us down there." How did she do that transition from West Hancock to Pella? What was that like for her? You remember it all?
Yeah, I think she enjoyed it because, she played at Pella and got to play at state for state basketball, so she was surrounded by a good team, so I think she had good success.
And what is she doing out in the Sacramento area?
She works for a nonprofit out there. I can't even remember the name of it. Do you remember, Kurt?
I don't remember the name, but they work with like refugees, and she was for a while working for churches, and now she's at a nonprofit. So
Nice. And Angie's in Pella, and she said you have a niece or nephew that just got married not that long ago.
yeah.
What's
Couple weeks ago.
Angie's last name? Because my wife's brother and family live in Pella. I should ask what's her name? Angie what now?
Nunnakoven.
Nunnakoven. Okay. I'll have to ask them. They know everybody. He owns a business there in town, and she's worked at a couple jobs. So, yeah, we get to Pella every once in a while to see family. So, wrap things up here, Kurt. What I'm being sarcastic here. What's a bigger accomplishment? Hiking Mount Kilimanjaro 4 times or being on The Price is Right in 2005? What would you say is the bigger accomplishment? Or that you can still fit in your old Wes Hancock shirt?
Well, yeah. I would say Kilimanjaro is, it's a bucket list type of thing, huge accomplishment, and yeah, Price is Right was just kind of a random a random thing that I got to be a part of right out of college.
You guys can see my screen here. Um, how did this end up being? And then the commercials. I started watching this and I was like, I almost fast forwarded through the show to the old commercials. That was almost
Yeah.
more rewarding to me. How'd you end up getting here?
So 2004, I had graduated from Central College, and I mean, I took a job at a bank right out of Central because I was in a few weddings and stuff in Pella, and I knew I was not going to be a long-term banker. I just did not like it. And Julie called me up from Central and said, "Hey, I'm going to take a gap year from Central. I'm going to do a YWAM thing. Do you want to join me?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll quit right now." So I quit my job right there. And 2 weeks later, we were doing YWAM in California together. And so one of our fun days in California, we did, our group of 20 or so decided to go to the Price is Right as a fun day. And so that's how we ended up going to the show, The Price is Right. So
Yeah, I'm not going to show this whole thing for the sake of time, but I'm going to show you young. I don't think you've changed a bit. I watched this video, then you got on Zoom, and I'm like, he looks pretty much the same. So I'm kind of jealous. But watch Kurt get up on stage, then watching him win his $10,000. Take like a couple seconds here. Everything. It's 20 years ago. right now. Question, was that a Central College football hat you were wearing?
It definitely was. Yep.
Nice. And you told me before, you kind of knew you were going on. What was that screening process like?
Yeah, I had mentioned before. So you line up with your big name tag on. So and you've got seconds to capture attention. They're just interviewing people after person and say, where are you from? What do you like to do for fun? And if you don't catch their attention within seconds, they just move on to the next person. So we kind of had seen that coming. And Julie and I were like, well, one of us has to make it on the show. So we got to do something to catch her attention. So they got to me and they said, Kurt, where are you from? What do you like to do for fun? And I said, I'm a pure Iowa country boy and I love to drive tractors and go skinny dipping. And the guy just started cracking up and he's like, oh, that's awesome. You know, you look athletic. Do you play any sports? I'm like, yeah, I play college football. And he's like, no way, I did too. And we had this conversation and there's a guy behind him writing like, oh, okay, these, interesting. And so we got up to the door and I was like, I think I'm probably have a good chance of getting on the show. And the reason why people can't hear their names being called is they just tell everyone to cheer and they hold up a big sign on the stage. So you can't hear them announce the name. They're just looking on the stage.
Really?
So you look up and you're like, oh, Kurt Rietema. So then you're like,
That's
oh,
me.
it's me. That's why people are so surprised. So
I recognize that name on that paper. That's me.
yeah.
Yep. So you played a game, was like half and half or something like that, and you had to eliminate options and gave you a certain amount of boxes, and then you saw if you won $10,000 or not. So that's what this is, right?
Yep.
Question: do you still have that $10,000, or is that gone 19 years later, or
That went
six
it pretty
thousand
much.
dollars you got out of it, or whatever?
Yeah, with after taxes and stuff, it pretty much covered what I owed Central College for student loans. So I
There
just
you
paid
go.
my student loans off and um yeah.
That could have been worse, that's for sure. Do you remember what it was like? Did you have to go back and sign a bunch of papers and do a whole bunch of stuff? Was it almost kind of a pain to get it per se, or I know
Yeah, I
some
mean
people
that day
make
you
it
had to sign a
hard.
few things, but it didn't show up for months later. And um yeah, we still have the clock in our dining room area. It's definitely a conversation piece. And yeah, when you asked me about this video, we thought we had lost it because our DVD does not work of it anymore. And then I started searching YouTube and somebody had put it on YouTube. So
Someone has a YouTube channel with like every old game show episode. Like they have had a lot of time on their hands. So, and then I real quick just want to show you spinning the wheel. Is that wheel heavier, harder to spin than you think when you're watching it on TV?
it's pretty heavy. So I wanted to make sure I spun it well and I tried to get the crowd involved too. And
They didn't ask you like, do you want to say hi to anybody? Did they not do that back then? I thought they've always done that, where you get to like real quick ramble off all your family and friends.
no, Bob did not ask me that. I mean, I tried to say Bob as much as I could, like thanks, Bob, 1151 Bob. And but yeah, he didn't ask us that. So
Let's watch your wheel spin here. Baggy jeans.
well, Whitney had gotten 95 cents, so 95 was tough to beat. So, you know,
One more. $95, but had that first spin. So yeah, that's pretty neat. I was like, I can't do a podcast with the guy that's been on Price is Right and not show the video from the Price is Right. Have Bob, now I can say Bob Barker was on my podcast, just like I can
yeah.
say Peyton Manning watched my podcast. When Josh Hartman was on my podcast, I don't know, episode 50-ish. He said he had dinner with Peyton Manning a couple nights before, and he said, I'm going to do a podcast with the guy from my hometown. And Peyton said, oh, make sure I check it out. Send me the link. So I just go around telling people that Peyton Manning watches my podcast. So just served some good purpose for me. But yeah, so
Smart.
yeah, exactly. You gotta spin the words to make it sound and look better for you, however you can. That's just how it works. So, well, before we wrap it up, guys, is there anything else? First of all, my next 5 episodes, I have Jarod Haxton, the 2016 Girls State Championship track and field team. Hopefully, Dave and Kurt Howlett can get on here. I've been struggling to get a date set with them. The Eckels Cousins, and then Lisa Hiscocks will be my next 5 episodes. That'll get us into football season, and then a few more episodes, and hopefully a bunch of playoff episodes like we've done the last few years. I always leave this last couple seconds here. Anybody we forgot to talk about? Any shout outs you want to throw out to classmates, teammates, coaches, whatever? Have at it.
I mean, I don't know if there's specific individuals. I mean, I think that, and Kurt can speak to this too. I think we had great experiences at West Hancock High School. So many great teachers, friends and coaches, obviously. Yeah, just good experiences all around. It was a great place to grow up, great atmosphere to be a part of. And yeah, kind of saying thanks to you again, Dan, for putting this all together and starting this up. I mean, you kind of sent some notes over and said, man, episode 111, who would have thought made it this long? And, you're doing a great job with it. And it's just fun to reconnect with other people in the community there, as obviously, I don't get out there as much as I'd like to. I mean, I've really missed hobo days and stuff like that. But yeah, thanks for putting this all together. And yeah, so many influential people in my life have been in north central Iowa there. So
Kurt?
Yeah, and I'd say, it's hard to, you start naming teammates and classmates and then you're going to forget someone. So, I mean, I just echo what Tony was saying, like just the experiences growing up in that area, just the small, tight-knit community. And like, you think about in our high school days, like how many teachers that my mom had also as a teacher, 30 years later, like there were so many teachers that had been there for 40 years, that just, I don't know, helped create a culture, I think, in the school of just camaraderie and respect. And yeah, I have so many good memories of growing up and, small town, and friends and hanging out in town. And, somehow we survived without cell phones. And, you'd meet up with friends and go get Mark's Pizza. And, that still brings me back, love Mark's Pizza. And you'd go rent a movie and, hang out at the Klein's house, or you just keep watching Top Gun because it was on all the time there. But yeah, just so many good memories. And just I think when I went to Central, I went to a few different friends' hometowns and stuff, and I really don't feel like anywhere else that I had experienced really had that community and sports mentality and everyone comes to the football game type of like what we had at West Hancock. I think it's just a special place, and we got to live in a special community, and it was just a blast growing up there and lots of great memories. So
Yeah. Do you guys still follow West Hancock sports a little bit?
I mean, I try to. It's hard with 5 kids, and I mean, my Friday nights get taken up pretty quickly with that many kids and varsity sports on our end and different stuff like that. So it's hard to. I try to do the best I can. I mean, I research it probably late at night, catching up on videos or information, highlights, stuff like that, best I can.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Kurt? Do you keep
yeah,
up a little
same
bit?
here. Yeah, I mean, if they've got a big game, I might tune in a little bit. I definitely watch some of the finals and semifinals games. I'm glad they do live streaming and stuff. And if I miss it, I'll check the score. But yeah, I'm pretty interested in how they fare and, look at track and even wrestling stuff. Just, it's fun to see how they're doing these days. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, you said it's not normal. Like you go to somebody's hometowns and people just don't care. It's not a big deal. And for us, it's what keeps that community going, not that sports or the be all end all life or death type of thing, but We've had so many of those coaches and teachers that taught us so many lessons and just built that character through athletics. So people still care. So, well, fellas, I appreciate you coming on. This was a good time. Again, Hall of Fame event, September 6th. The Britt West Hancock Alumni Banquet is August 9th, I believe. The Friday of Hobo Days. We're switching it out to the Britt Golf Course this year to change it up a little bit. And we're going to honor Diane Troutman and Linda Sanger as educators of the year past and present. So if you haven't yet signed up to come to that event, email Bill Frito, bfrito@hotmail.com. Bill still has a Hotmail account, so that brings you back to the 90s right there. And if you can't make it to the actual event, you can make it before or after, stop on out to the Britt Golf Course to honor Mrs. Sanger and Miss T. So, fellas, I appreciate it. And like always, well, we got to give a Nate Sure thumbs up as we say, go Eagles. I think that's only fitting. So, go Eagles.
Right,
Thanks,
go
guys.
Eagles.
And